Hey everyone, so welcome to the Get More Students webinar. So this is an occasion where we try and bring together not only our two permanent panelists, Herbert Gerzer and Corinne, to talk about marketing and create some ideas and advice to help you build your tutoring or language business. But we also bring on a special guest to kind of focus on a particular area of expertise that you will be interested either from a marketing, technology, or sector perspective. So without further ado, let's talk through, of course, Herbert, who is a digital advertising expert. So while you're listening today, I really want you to think about some questions you might have for Herbert. Herbert's going to do one small piece, one small bit of advice for you to follow, but that doesn't mean that you can't ask questions in the Q&A that is at the end of today's webinar. Likewise, you have a really amazingly gifted social media expert, Corinne. So she's again going to tell you some really not sneaky stuff, some really important stuff that's coming out of Instagram. But again, have a think about some of those questions you might have around social media, or particularly that kind of area of the business, and Corinne can be your helper. But we are really privileged today to also introduce Christian Rowe. Christian is the co-founder of Immerse, which is a VR education company. And so, as he puts it, knows a thing or two about it, but certainly more than I or probably the rest of the panelists do. So we're definitely excited to have you, Christian.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Good to be here. Thank you.
So in terms of the format, I'm just going to start with a bit of a debrief on some of the more important news in the sectors. So again, tutoring, language education, that's our jam, and probably why you're here. So let me just start off with talking about what's actually sort of going on out there. So one of the biggest things, and again, I'm going to try and keep my section brief, but was China effectively banning or putting huge restrictions on the for-profit sector in China. Now, this has a lot of repercussions for a lot of reasons. So I just think it's really worth knowing about it, because it all impacts us in one way or another, because it impacts the balance of the kind of business that goes around the language sector in particular, but this is also for tutoring as well. So a lot of tutoring businesses are also affected. But basically, when China, in late July, but really we started seeing more and more of what that really felt like, or what was going to work out like in the early part of this month, said, hey, in their view, they don't want to have so much pressure put on children in particular. They haven't changed probably the structural piece, which is the Gaokao, which is like a really high pressure exam, but they are wanting to reduce the influence of tutoring companies, and particularly there's a real emphasis on reducing, if not stopping, foreign teachers from teaching particularly Chinese students on core curriculum or core education. So it's not likely to affect adult education at this stage, although it depends what they feel about with foreign education in general in those areas. But it's a major blow for huge companies. So VIP Kid, GoGo Kid, Wales, and like these are big names in the education sector. And again, Christian, you'll probably be aware on the investment side, these companies have raised so much money and have just crazy valuations in the billions for each one of these. So it's a pretty big deal. And I think what's really fascinating is, what does this mean? And I think we should be first and foremost really empathetic to the hundreds of thousands of teachers that have suddenly lost their lifeline. Like a lot, not just a few, like thousands of teachers rely on these companies to get them their income. And that gig is pretty much up for at least, or incredibly disrupted over this time period. We've talked a lot from a LearnCube perspective, because we sell a virtual classroom and all-in-one online school solution for language schools. A lot of these independent teachers are coming to us around like, what could we do for them? So just to be aware that we also do have a new product called our Online School Lite, which is made for independent teachers. That's our way of, I guess, trying to adapt to this kind of crazy changing market. So a lot of these teachers will be looking for options, including maybe not how do I get around the rules in China, but actually where else could I teach? Who else could I teach? And what does that look like? Now, one of the fascinating things I find behind this as well is that the Chinese market is so dominated by the kids part of the market. So in terms of other markets that provide opportunities for kids education, it's probably not quite as many compared to China. So it'll be very interesting to see how the teachers have to adapt, and maybe instead of looking at targeting other young children, which, for example, in Europe, there's no market for like young kids learning English in the same volumes that there would be out of China. So they might need to kind of adapt and think about that. So I really find that a really fascinating change, and it's going to have a lot of implications. Panelists, do you have any thoughts on what you think this might mean for language schools, tutoring companies as well? Because they're also hiring potentially some of these tutors. Might be a good time to find great people.
And definitely an opportunity for, I guess, more traditional language or English language schools, also online language schools, to find some great talent. And help out those stranded tutors.
Yeah, and also hopefully for those tutors, they can maybe find a lot of empowerment in building their own business. So it could be very interesting for the months ahead. So I'm going to pass the baton over to Herbert.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Could you please give me hosting?
I sure can. Now, I always battle with this.
I do that to my teammates all the time.
Zoom.
Make host. So Herbert, you are officially the host, sir.
Thank you so much. Fantastic. Wonderful. So yes, today I really wanted to quickly go through some tips, some actionable strategies on writing headlines. And why headlines? Because we use them every single day. And it's very important, not just for, say, paid ads. We always have headlines in our social media ads, but you use headlines in your newsletters, in blog posts, in your social media posts. So getting headlines right and creating headlines that pique people's curiosity is absolutely paramount for them to continue reading what you have to say. The headline is usually the first thing a customer or a reader reads. You might have a lovely photo or a video, but then they see the headline and they want to see if that headline is appealing before continuing. So it's the first thing the customer reads, but the last thing that you should write. And so you want to make the headline precise, personalized, provoking, and test. Now, I do want to show you some examples of how effective headlines can be and what that means in terms of real numbers in a paid ads setting. So here we have two identical ads. As you can see, we have a photo of a young boy holding his IELTS certificate. This is for an English school that focuses on IELTS exam preparation courses for students around the world. Same ad copy, everything is the same except the headline. And you will see on the left, that headline is "Improve Your IELTS Score Today." It's not a bad headline. It shows, the result that we're trying to achieve. There's a little bit of sense of urgency there with "today" and the exclamation mark. But then we have the headline on the right, which is how Aiden moved from a 5.5 to 7.5 on IELTS writing. Do you notice the difference? The one on the right is much more specific. It's personalized. We have the name of the student. We have the exact number of his score increase. And also we're mentioning the particular part of the IELTS test he improved, IELTS writing. So this is a very compelling headline. It piques people's curiosity. They want to know how he did it. And of course, after someone clicks on the link, they will find out exactly what your product is and how you helped or how they helped Aiden to achieve that score increase. And in real terms, that meant we went from cost per click for this ad of 32 cents to 14 cents, which is less than half, and a click-through rate from 0.64% to 1.42%, which is really quite staggering. So, and this is only changing the headlines. So that's why creating headlines, good headlines, can be so powerful. So I want to give you some strategies on how to craft some headlines for yourself, again, for your newsletters, blog posts, social media ads, and also social media posts. This isn't a complete list, but this will give you some inspiration. Using numbers in your headlines is very effective. It makes it real and finite. So 98% of students recommend ABC Language School, 2,000 plus 5-star reviews, 3 effective strategies to pass your Cambridge exam. You get the idea. These are one of the best ways to use numbers in your headlines. Another way is to structure the headlines like it was a piece of news. Headlines come from newspapers and magazines, and they want to capture your attention so that you read the whole article. So something like online versus in-person English classes, what's better? The proven way to master German grammar, how everyday Americans are learning Spanish. These are very news-like and can be very effective at grabbing people's attention. Some other ways are to use how-to. Everyone loves to know how to do something. So how to avoid these 7 embarrassing English mistakes, how to achieve a 7.5 on your IELTS writing, and also using questions that are relevant to your audience. Are you learning English the wrong way? Is this the best Spanish learning app, for example? And yeah, where do you get inspiration from? Now, the best copywriters in the world are hired by magazines and newspapers, especially publications like the Daily Mail, New York Post. They know how to write an effective headline so that they draw people in. Also, beauty and fashion magazines do this extremely well. And I've given you some examples here. And actually, most of the examples have a number in them. Top 10 Mac antivirus. Do Mac users really need protection? They're actually using 2 of the tips that I gave you, a number and a question. So combining them and using them together can be even more effective. Some other ways of getting inspiration is to look at your best performing organic posts. So going to Facebook, going to your blog articles, your newsletters, see which ones got the most engagement from people, the most likes, the most comments, and use those phrases, that words, those headlines that really resonated with them. Another couple of tips for getting inspiration for ad copy in general is to create a personal swipe file. So when you're browsing the internet, when you're scrolling through Instagram or Facebook, I'm sure that you stop scrolling quite often when there's an ad that captures your attention, whether it be the photo, the video, the ad copy. What I like to do is take a screenshot or even download the video and put it in a folder to use for inspiration later. And the last tip is to sign up to your competitors, but not only your competitors, other types of language schools, foreign language schools, to see what they're putting out there for marketing. What are the emails they're sending out to follow up, and promotions as well. But not just in your industry, other businesses as well. An industry that really nails ad copy is the direct to consumer industry, e-commerce, buying basically anything online. If you sign up to their newsletters, you'll be bombarded with emails, with promotions, with really effective pieces of ad copy, which you can also utilize to sell and promote language courses. So that was my very quick presentation on writing powerful headlines. I hope you got some tips and some inspiration to use them for yourself.
Brilliant, Herbert. So we're going to pass this over to Corinne.
Yes.
Coming up next. While Corinne, you're setting yourself up, Herbert, I just had a question on, did you feel that headlines for, let's say, blogs would often work just as well as the headlines for, say, Facebook ads? Like, is there a difference between, those kind of two formats and reasons for having a headline?
I mean, I guess it really depends on what your blog is about. But I mean, the whole goal of really any piece of content is to get the person to read what you have to say, whether that be your ad, a newsletter, or a blog post. So using some of the strategies that I listed, across all types of media can be very effective.
Great. Thanks for that, Herbert.
You're welcome.
And we're now ready for Corinne.
Yes.
Who is going to tell us an Instagram update.
Yeah, so it's a little bit different from me this month, mainly because Instagram, well, they like to change things up. And at the end of June, I think it was actually the 30th of June, so the very, very end of June, Adam Mosseri, the founder of Instagram, decided to really let loose and give us a heads up on some really big changes that are coming to Instagram. So the quote that has been thrown all around the place is that he said, Instagram is no longer a photo sharing app. What he meant to say is that it's not just a photo sharing app. And what that means is that Instagram is changing their focus. They're moving away from the sort of image graphic based posts, and they're going to be really placing their priority on video. Now, all these other kinds of posts that we have, the static posts, the carousel posts, there's still a place for them. We're not getting rid of them completely. They're still going to be part of our overall strategy. But what this means is that the algorithms, when they're looking at your content, they're going to be prioritizing video. Video is about to get really important. So let's have a look at the changes that Adam Mosseri told us about. So there was 4 main changes. So in addition, whoops, I think I've gone too far. In addition to video, there was 3 other changes. And he said basically shopping was going to be an area where they were going to shake things up a bit. He made mention of the pandemic really speeding up people's tendency towards online shopping. And he decided that Instagram was going to have to lean into this. And what that's going to do is going to make shopping easier on the platform. It's going to be more accessible. However, does it apply to us as educators and education businesses? The answer to that is mostly no. If you have a good look at the rules regarding what you need to do or produce or to have a shop on Instagram or even Facebook, same owner, same rules apply, you actually have to have a product that you can hold in your hands. Now, I know arguably a language course is something that we attend, we're involved in it, but the ruling is it has to be a product. So it has to be a pair of shoes, a bike, something that you can actually tangibly get a hold of. So the updates to shopping, they're not really going to have an impact on our professional lives, perhaps more so when we're finished with work. Another area that Instagram is going to start bringing in changes is creators. Now, what is a creator? When I first heard this, I thought, oh, maybe they're going to start, promoting people who are creating craft of some sort or actual products. But no, it's people creating content on Instagram. So those are your influencers, your brand reps. The reason why they're doing this is that they really want to personalize the experience on Instagram. So it's a shift away from interacting with a brand and rather interacting with a person representing or speaking on behalf of that brand. Now, it's probably not going to have that much of an impact on education businesses, not unless you're actually working with education influencers. There are a few out there, micro-influencers, these kinds of people. But again, it's something that we need to keep our eye on because things move fast, things change fast, and you never know. Messaging, now these next two are kind of things that are things that we should be more interested in and more not worried about, but we should be looking after the way we do these things. Messaging, so research conducted by Instagram showed that the way that we interact with each other on the platform has actually changed quite considerably. So before we would write a public comment under a caption or under a post, or we'd like something, well, that's shifted towards us DMing, so sending messages to each other, actually forwarding content on So because of that shift, Instagram's going to make our messaging, they're going to improve and increase our messaging capabilities. What does that mean for education? Well, it's going to make connecting with potential students, their families, agents, and so on much, much easier. Right now, if you try to cold message somebody, chances are you're going to end up in their other folder, their general folder, not in their main folder. So their message may not get seen at all, or there might be quite a long sort of span of time before that message is actually seen. So they're looking at tidying up these sorts of things and making it easier for people to connect via the messaging system. Now, video, as I mentioned before, and that was the fourth area, and basically that's the one that has the biggest impact on us in education. So as I said, video is about to be prioritized. Doesn't mean we get rid of our other content, but we are going to have to make sure that video is a very, very integral part of what we're doing on Instagram and in social media in general, really. Yeah, so this is the one that has the biggest impact on us. We need to be using all different types of video that's available to us. So we've got Reels, stories, grid videos, we've got IGTV, we've got lives. Lives even count as a form of video when we're talking about Instagram. So again, static posts are not going to be enough on their own. We really have to start considering video, and you know, this change is already rolling out. I've done a little bit of testing myself, and already, you know, things like, oh, animated posts is another one that counts as videos that I forgot to mention. Already things are starting to shift. If you're using video, you would have already noticed that your reach and your engagement will suddenly be much higher than it was before. So yeah, that is pretty much all of the updates from Instagram in a very short nutshell. I think that's probably the fastest I've been on one of these things. So yeah, everybody, video, yes.
That's brilliant.
Great. Yeah, Corinne, I know that a lot of language schools, tutoring companies struggle creating video content.
Yes.
Do you have maybe some quick tips for them on how to make it easier?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've got one really cheeky tip, and I have one tip that, well, sort of more one sort of word of encouragement, I suppose. So I'll start with the really, a really cheeky tip, and a static post. So if you're using something like Canva, there are one or two equivalent programs out there, but big Canva girl over here. If you're using Canva, you've created a nice static post, animate it. When you animate a post, whether it's adding in a sticker that moves, whether it's making the elements move onto that post, when you animate that post and save it, it saves as an MP4. Now, when you upload an MP4 to Instagram, the algorithms treat that as a video. So it actually counts as video content, even though in essence, you've just animated a regular post. So it's treated in exactly the same way. So that I wouldn't do that every day. I mean, we want to use different types of video, but it is like a really cheeky way to get some video content onto your feed without having to go through the process of fronting a video. The other thing I just wanted to super quickly mention was that when we're talking social media video in general, quite often it's the warts and all approach which has the highest impact. So there's been a ton of research done. And what that means is that it's not the uber produced, crazy professional videos that have the highest impact. A lot of the time, it's the one that somebody has filmed with their cell phone. Maybe they've stumbled over a word here or there. It doesn't matter. People respond really well to authenticity, people being their authentic selves. Good for credibility, good for likability. So don't be afraid. Don't feel like you have to be perfect to make an impact on video.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's one of those stumbling blocks and barriers that a lot of people have to overcome.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Corinne, thanks so much for that. And now we've got Christian, who's going to follow on with telling us more about virtual reality and how that impacts education.
Wonderful.
You got it. Well, thank you guys again for letting me be a part of this. When we say like the word experts, I feel very much that you three are better categorized in that than I am. I'm excited to tell you guys a thing or two about virtual reality, but when it comes to advertising and marketing, I hope that you call Corinne and Herbert before you call me, because they're really the experts in the room here, and have had the privilege personally to work with Herbert on a handful of projects. And and I'm going to share a couple of examples and tips, but maybe at first, I just wanted to invite those that are here, if you have any particular questions specifically about virtual reality, because there's 1,000 things I could talk about. But if there's specific things that you want answered, or that you're kind of coming or bringing to the table that feel unresolved in your mind or blurry when it comes to your understanding of virtual reality, I'd love to help answer some of those. So bring them on, and maybe some help panelists. If I don't see something, feel free to just totally interrupt me. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to give a quick update, maybe first to kind of the virtual reality market and the kind of the moment that we're in. And it's really, really exciting. And from the moment, kind of get more into then how do we tell the story of VR learning really well, and maybe with some good and some not so good examples. So to start, as a co-founder of a virtual reality software company, this time is really, really exciting because because we've been trying to educate the market for 3.5 years before the pandemic hit on the importance of virtual reality education. As everyone can imagine, it was difficult because there wasn't quite necessarily an urgency to move into it. It seemed like something that was maybe like a fun add-on. Maybe it's something we can put in the lounge that students can pick up and have a really cool social, experience after class. Or what if we do a camp, every quarter in virtual reality and get a bunch of people to sign up for that. And those are great ideas. But I think for virtual reality, a lot of people have had if I could be candid, a quite limited vision for how virtual reality can be used, and as a really powerful marketing tool, as a really powerful learning tool. And I think that's also because of, and I don't think there's any one particular person or group of people to blame, but I think that a lot of people have limited to no experience inside of virtual reality. That's access to hardware, and it's new. I mean, when the first computer came out, or when the iPhone came out, the first people that had it, I remember I was like friend number 102 that got an iPhone when everyone else had one. And so I was like calling, it was back in, years ago. So I was calling my mom to pick me up from school with my friend's iPhone. And then while I did it, I was checking out like the 3 features I didn't know before. And so it was, there's just getting access to that kind of technology was really kind of game changing. But I think when it comes to the storytelling aspect of virtual reality, I think it really has everything to do with the vision that we're casting. Any good marketing, in my personal opinion, is helping people see the vision and see the change that they want to experience. See the person that they want to become, the better self, the new self. And if you can help me see that and kind of show me the lit path in front of me to get there, and I feel safe, I feel encouraged, I feel invited to be able to partake in that, then that's the best kind of marketing. Unfortunately, I think that a lot of people, when it comes to VR specifically, and I would imagine it's most people listening to this, and it's okay, but most people think back to, I hear this 2 things a lot. One, the Google Cardboard, is it kind of like that? So is it like the Google Cardboard when you put it on and you could slide your phone through and look at a 360 image? And I just want to say we have come so far since Google Cardboard. And if you are using that for marketing, I highly encourage you to stop. Only because what we've learned is, as technology, as I'm holding the Quest 2 in front of me, has evolved, something that's been really interesting to learn is how older models have actually, referencing older models, though it's helpful to understand where we've come from, has actually harmed the vision casting and marketing when that kind of older models are used. And so when you say it's kind of like Google Cardboard, but it's kind of like this, instead now, or these few things have changed. Again, the vision that I have in my experience is quite literally the physical movement of holding something in front of my face. And my elbows are kind of getting tired when you're like waiting for a teacher to call on you, in class. And so I'm thinking about that kind of experience. And then I'm thinking about the 4 360 images I saw. I'm trying to get there in my mind about what this new thing is. But with that as my reference point, it's really hard to cast vision for virtual reality as it actually exists today. And so, though I think it's important to help educate people where we come from, I would highly, highly, highly encourage anyone who's interested in virtual reality to just be up to date with like the newest models. And that doesn't just have to be the Quest 2. There's other headsets. This is by far and large the most successfully and sold headset. I don't work for Facebook. I'm not getting a commission by advertising it. But it's what people are using. It's what people are buying. I'm having people from youth group at church that are literally texting me saying, hey, can we hang out in VR now? Like, can we go hang out in this app? I'm like, this moment is happening. And it's because of the advancements of this hardware. So my first tip would say, let's learn from the past, but not necessarily reference it as much, just because it is, I think, more harmful than helpful when we're casting vision for what VR is today. Also, when it comes to marketing, sign me up. I'm just seeing this comment that Lindy said. Woo! I love you, Lindy. Appreciate the all caps. Anyways, one other thing I was going to say is maybe a tip, and I'll share my screen. I'm not a big screen share because I get distracted, but I'll share just a few things here. So you guys, there's Reddit feeds. There's a handful of people that are in virtual reality marketing that share some of this, but kind of maybe marketing that I wouldn't advise using, and that is like these images. If you can kind of understand what I'm talking about, it's these. Yeah, I'll just let you take a look. It's some of these images that just aren't helpful.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
When you're looking at some of these, sorry if there are not a lot of guns on here. I didn't know that was here. But I'm going to explain why some of these aren't helpful. And there's some comedy in here. Like, I'm not sure if this guy is holding someone by the shoulders or if he's driving a car with a massive steering wheel. I'm not quite sure what's happening here. We got more car drivers. Yeah, it's like these just aren't super helpful. And I share that because they're the really high quality virtual reality images, and stock photography are very limited because VR is still new. And so again, this is not me saying, why are we using that? It's because for a lot of people are like, I can't find a virtual reality picture that's high quality anywhere. So I'm having to pull from these stock photographies, and it's like some call them like the mouth open shot, where, as you saw, it's just like, whoa. But it's just like, it's, I think, aiding and really, what's the word I'm looking for?
Sort of stereotyping it. Stereotype, right?
Stereotyping it, but it's also enhancing the hype that, again, is more harmful than helpful.
Yeah.
That, yes, I think, and I'm very excited about all we can do in virtual reality. I just tried also Facebook's Workroom yesterday. We did our all hands as a team in Workroom for the first time as a new app that's out, and I was blown away. And there's some things that need to be improved, but just more and more, from fitness to therapy to education, there's so much that you can do in this headset. It's very multi-purpose, like a computer or a laptop or a phone is. But that being said, I think that it's easy with the new technology to just really lean into the hype of it all. And though I think we need to be excited, like Lindy's all caps in the message here, I also think that what we should be more excited about is the new affordances of human transformation that can happen because of this new technology. Not just the new technology looks cool, or not just the new technology is the new technology. Because this is just a tool. It's just a means for something new. It opens up the door for new opportunity. And so I would highly encourage that any marketing or research that you're doing in virtual reality education, or virtual just at large with LearnCube and other fantastic tools that have been growing a lot during the pandemic, is to focus more on and really take the time, I think, to educate yourself on what those new affordances are. Because I think a lot of people also don't know. And so they take the same unique, value propositions, and they just kind of place it in VR, hoping that it works. Kind of copy and paste old ways into the new way, or this new medium of interacting with people, and that doesn't always work either.
Christian,
Tell
us a little bit about that. So, what are the affordances? Like, I think it's been great to learn what not to do. Yeah. And I'm really curious about you telling us what to do with what are the. Let's start with the affordances. What are the affordances that VR brings us?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there's a lot, but the handful that stand out to me that I'd love to share is of course presence. It's embodiment. Facebook announcing that they're building what is the metaverse, and we have some exciting upcoming news and interviews talking about that and breaking that down. But he talks about that in a few years we are going to experience what's called embodied internet, which is like, whoa. Really crazy, where we're all together just doing life together. But when we really kind of just look at this niche of VR education, I think of what does it look like if we can imagine, for students that are in living rooms everywhere around the world that desperately crave to have a connection with people that aren't like them, and for people to build friendships again and to really invest in relationships, both with the educators that are pouring into them as well as their peers. And to do that through a 2D screen, though, is a great tool, and it has helped the world move forward. But I also think that there is and can be a limitation just in the feeling of, and it's depending on what's being taught or what, again, these are all different tools, but for virtual reality specifically, we can really tap into embodied presence together. And that's super powerful. It's the reason why, I saw an article saying, is face-to-face learning the most high quality? Like, I don't know if we've actually dubbed what is the most high quality education throughout history. And I'm sure everyone has a different opinion. But from my personal experience, being shoulder to shoulder with someone and really processing and kind of getting in the weeds with whatever I'm learning is really powerful. I mean, take team working and collaboration, for instance. Like, I can collaborate on Zoom all day long, and I do. But when we get the chance to co-work together and like really be shoulder to shoulder, it's just like a spark of joy and refreshment. It fuels me, and so it fuels the work that I do. And so similarly, that principle that it fuels the learning, and because of that presence, it actually unlocks a few different things. It unlocks a different kind of motivation. That I think is really hard for teachers, really, really hard to be able. It's almost like I think the pandemic has forced a spotlight on the teachers to almost perform more or really kind of think out of the box to get the students to get off their seat and be excited for the first time in a while to really be engaged in the content. And virtual reality does a lot of that hard work for you. That because you're embodied in the space, they are almost like enthralled and compelled by everything going on. And it's just the teacher's job to channel that motivation and channel that engagement with the content, for the purpose of whatever the learning objective is for that time together. So embodied presence, huge. Relationships, it's the number one thing in my mind. And that social connection, and that's probably the other big one is, I think, though there's a handful, social opportunity is limited. And I think virtual reality also opens up a unique opportunity for students to feel safe enough, to feel a comfort in a space, and again with that motivation to actually engage with people and overcome that fear of failure, the fear of looking foolish. I can think of so many examples when I was put on the spot to speak and I'm just deathly afraid. And virtual reality does lower that affective filter, and we talk about that a lot. But it really empowers the students to practice speaking and to really engage with the learning in a more purposeful way. And I think because of that, you can get to learning objectives and achieve those faster. And you can, it's just more dynamic. It's the difference when you try to open up a prompt, it's just like, Bueller, like, anyone, please respond. Like, can we get this, activity going? Versus like, it's dynamic. We have different perspectives of students from different places around the world, and we're all coming together to have this experience. And it's just a matter, again, of facilitating it really well. That's a different experience, I think, what a lot of educators are having right now. So social connection, relationships, and I think the removal of the teacher needing to be the superstar of the show and putting a lot of the talking time and the social time back on the students.
That's awesome, Christian. And I think we'll continue this conversation even now, but just while we're doing that, if you have questions, definitely pop them in the chat so Christian can answer. But I'll sort of kick things off as well to keep you on the same space and maybe even in theme with the marketing side of things, Christian. Yeah. But what are some of the words or phrases that you feel could be useful in terms of marketing? Let's call it any technology, because not everyone will start with VR, sure, even though I know that a lot of people are really curious about it. But how do you sell a VR or a technology rather than just say, hey, this is the hype? We know that that's not working.
How do we get
so
past
then what's the actual, what are the words that we can use that, because I think embodiment, I mean, they're probably a little bit, I'm not too sure if that's a marketable word when you're on your homepage, but you might have other words.
Yeah, it actually builds off of, I'll kind of answer the question. I'm going to change it a little bit. But from what Corinne and Herbert were saying earlier, just the power of video and images, and of course, headline copy. In my mind, I think the future of all marketing is compelling short video with compelling headlines. And so I think the trouble with virtual reality is people, and I think just any new technology, is people trying to describe the experience that can't quite again paint the picture in people's minds. And again, I know it comes to access, but I think Pete said earlier in this, he's like, well, you got to borrow, don't steal. But if you just have to borrow for a little bit to give it back, a headset. I think the most powerful thing you could do is, I would say, find one of us and let's figure out a way to put this on your face. And then I want to encapsulate the words that you say. I want to understand, like, what do you think about this experience? What words come to mind that's just the wow for you? And what's the why behind the wow for you? And let's kind of bottle that and encapsulate that and use that instead of your marketing, because it's such a new thing that I think people are still trying to figure out who to trust, like, of what this experience actually looks like. And so I think also the best way to do that is just do a lot more show instead of tell. And of course, compelling headlines, super important. And again, I'm not the expert in that, but I also am seeing a trend, and this is different, and I love if you guys would agree or disagree, but just a trend on the less filtered kind of TikTok style short video is booming. And it's interesting to see some of these practices that are kind of old news on other platforms like LinkedIn, for instance. And I know that schools aren't necessarily selling to students on LinkedIn, but it's interesting just on how on different platforms, it's carousel photos is new and exciting. It's that's been around on Instagram for a while. But to be able to show short video of the experience, and if it's having your iPhone of you in your living room and just capturing that and posting that, if that's you can cast the experience in virtual reality to a screen, whether it's your laptop or if it's a television, so you can cast it. So to be able to take a picture or a video of that and then go and kind of zoom in. But even if it's not super high quality, high production, people want to see more of that, because I think kind of sift through again the hype of what are people just trying to sell me things? I just want to see the real thing. I desperately want to see it. I think that's what's most impactful for virtual reality specifically, and any new technology in the virtual space.
Definitely. Real person in a real world setting using the technology.
Yeah, and I reckon sort of what you said there, Christian, and it feels really across any kind of technology or experience you're trying to serve, kind of what you've always been saying as well, Herbert. When you use student testimonials, they're always going to be able to describe it in far better words rather than sort of the sales copy side of things, and capturing that in video makes a ton of sense on that, Christian. Corinne, any last words from you? And otherwise, any ideas on technology, selling technology or marketing technology?
Well, I mean, it's really good to hear that, Christian, you also had the same sort of experience as I did with the super short, super realistic sort of video. And I think you're absolutely right. I think that when we're talking about technology in general, the biggest barrier is people are afraid, especially if we're talking to people who perhaps are not 20. Perhaps we're, the people who are having to create this content, may or may not be in that sort of super young TikTok age. They might be people like me who, a little bit older and need to, who can be afraid of these things. And so I think that when they see other people giving it a go in a realistic, authentic kind of way, well, then I think that's also quite inspirational, and it sort of makes the technology from a user point not so scary, but it also communicates to the audience, this idea of, things being credible and authentic and trustworthy, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And I think too, if I could, sorry, jump in, is just capturing the honest words of people, of the students. I highly encourage to give away demo experiences for free. We've, particularly for the language side of things, we've made different demos that we give schools for free to try out their students so that they can kind of get started. But the most powerful thing is for students to speak back to you of what was the wow moment again for them. And then you're getting immediate feedback on the messaging from what they're sharing. So then you can kind of bottle that and share that again.
Exactly.
And then be able to leverage again the video or the images from that experience. It's just again, immediate feedback that's really easy to iterate on. And it's trustworthy because it's a student saying, right now I'm seeing a Christian Rowe who's like a scary sales guy and I don't trust, he's not like me.
Exactly.
But instead, if I'm like, oh, like Raphael, like that's a student who's in the same path as me, and like we are the same person, the same journey, and he had that moment, I want to have that moment, I want to share that moment. It's just
much more powerful.
Exactly.
Alex, did we have any other questions from some participants, attendees?
I think
we had some
maybe
earlier in the chat. Yeah. I mean, I think Lindy and Michael had one, maybe just very quickly. Lindy asked about stats on demographics of different social media platforms, i.e. Facebook is for old people, haha. Yes and no. I mean, yes, Facebook also includes Instagram. Corinne probably has some even deeper stats on that.
That's actually quite funny because I've just recently done a bit of a unit on social media platform demographics. So it's quite topical. And what you find is when you're talking about Facebook, we've heard it 100 times. Facebook is for an older generation. It's kind of for people at youngest 35 and up. Well, that's really only true in English-speaking markets. If you look at the global demographics for Facebook, it's much, much younger. So if we're targeting, users in Asia, particularly Southeast Asia, if we're looking at users in pockets of South America, they are much younger than we in English-speaking environments would actually, would think and be. So that's something that's kind of a false truth, that Facebook is only for, the sort of 35, 40 plus bracket. If you're targeting international students in non-English speaking environments, Facebook is still absolutely worth your time.
I would agree with that.
Excellent.
I think Michael had a quick question on, do you think this style of sensational type of headlines work in non-English speaking countries? Very good question, Michael. Yeah, I mean, you see those very kind of clickbaity headlines in the US, in England, in Australia. You do have to be careful, obviously. There are cultural differences. I mean, if you're going into, say, the German-speaking regions, they're a little bit more conservative with that sort of thing. So you do have to tone it down a little bit. I mean, you should never be misleading or in your headlines, right? You need to deliver on that promise when people click. But you can definitely test out, and try out some more sensational headlines. Absolutely. Play around with some adjectives. Yeah. Yeah.
I think there was one more for Corinne.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you see that one?
Yes. Some examples of educational video content.
Oh, here we go. So I think, are we looking at the one where are we actually supposed to teach in the videos? Well, you can. That is one option, but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be that you're giving a lesson. Working with some clients, we've discovered that a lot of the time the videos that have the biggest uptake are the ones where teachers might give just a bite-sized tip. Could be a pronunciation tip. It could be sort of a grammar, an aspect of grammar. We had a fantastic video. If you head over to, for example, the Atlantic Galway on Instagram, over to their feed, you'll see that there's 1 or 2 videos there where teachers have actually used hilarious props to explain grammar concepts. And videos like that are really popular with students. But videos can be basically anything. They have to have a purpose. So, for example, you don't just want to be filming silly things for no reason. You want to actually have a purpose behind the video, and perhaps that purpose is I'm going to show people a bit of behind the scenes so that they understand where I'm coming from. That is a purpose, and that makes that appropriate. But you do have to be deliberate with what you're filming. But it doesn't have to be a highbrow lesson every time. It can be something else, sort of behind the scenes, or something slightly amusing, slightly funny. You've got free reign there.
Fantastic.
Brilliant, Corinne. I think we could definitely borrow you all to stay on today, but for now we're going to wrap up this Get More Students webinar. Thank you very much for our special guest, of course. Sorry. That's our timer. A big thank you to Christian Rowe for joining us.
Thanks, Christian. That was really good.
Yeah, really enjoyed it too. And you can also learn more about Christian's work at immerse.online. Is that the best way for people to get you, Christian?
Yeah, it's a great spot.
For Herbert Gerzer, herbertgerzer.com. For Corinne Allergy. Actually, Corinne, you might have another website that you put.
Oh, I do as well. Yeah, absolutely. So you can get me personally at corinnealgy.com. Otherwise, you can reach me at educationmarketingcollective.com. So all in one word, educationmarketingcollective.com.
Brilliant. And of course, thank you for letting me host you all. So Alex, and I'm from LearnCube, www.learncube.com. See you here next month. We're going to be doing again. We're on the last Thursday of each month. So we'll see you here next time. Thanks again, all.
Fantastic. See you. Bye-bye.